Hello and welcome to another episode of the Humanizing Data podcast run by Morpheus Meets. I'm your host and senior consultant here at Morpheus, Sean Kennedy. Today we're thankful to be joined by Daniel Bentov, who is the VP of Engineering at Hyro. So before we get into it, Daniel, how are you and where are you in the world as we speak?
Hi, Sean. I'm good. Thank you. I'm in Israel, in Tel Aviv, in our office.
Perfect. Thanks so much. And of course, really excited to have you on as a guest today. Going to cover a lot of great topics, both from your own personal background and your business, Hyro. But for those who don't know you, if you could just tell us about your background and journey to where you are today.
Sure. So, I've been in the Israeli Air Force for a long time. Like in Israel, the army service is mandatory. And then work in a civil company as a drone pilot, which helped me a lot in my career to connect this space of aviation and software engineering in some ways. Then I work in multiple startups as second employee, 10th. Been in Bizabo that grew pretty big in New York and in Tel Aviv. Then out of nowhere, I got an offer from Atlassian to move to Australia. And my wife was sure that I'm kidding. And we had like a 10-month-old baby for time. And suddenly things moved along and I went there. And in Atlassian, amazing experience. I managed a very large group in Jira platform. So I was deep in all the main pages in Jira that almost any engineer is using. And then I became the head of engineering of UI platforms. So that's all the front-end services that Atlassian provides for all Atlassian products. So, products like Jira and Confluence and Trello, Opgenie, Bitbucket, and small startups that Atlassian started to build from within. I managed the design system and two open source projects over there. It was a pretty big team, like around 100 engineers and designers and products. And then as a family, we decided to go back after COVID. We've been in Australia for 4 years. And it wasn't easy to deal with COVID with no family around. And I came back to Hyro. And yeah, I chose Hyro because I really like what the company is doing, the mission, the value, the impact on the world, the technology, moving from more product-oriented, front-end oriented space into AI. And also I worked with like the chief architect, which is the first employee, and we've been together in the same startup. So he was the first employee and I was the second. And the CEO is my best mate from university. So we are good friends from the past 10 years or so. So it's two other good reasons to join. So the gang is back together, and now I'm at Hyro for almost a year.
Excellent. Yeah, it's quite a story, and I'm a bit too scared to go to Australia. I'm not good with reptiles, so that would be my reason for not going there, and let alone crocodile, sharks, the full works. But in terms of working, it's a big cultural change and also a company change. And you mentioned that the reasons for coming back was a lot to do with sort of family. And now, if anything, you've probably got too much family with both in the work and so it's gone from one extreme to the other. But from your perspective, now that you've experienced both sides and working at a very large company and now back with Hyro, more of a startup, what would you say the sort of major differences and what are the things you've identified the most that are good to talk about?
Yeah, so I think both are great. It really depends on what you're after. I think that in a company like Atlassian, and if you can look at other big companies like Google and Facebook and Netflix and Amazon and such, I think you learn a lot about scale. You learn that any change you make might influence millions of users. You understand that you need to go deep into the details. Because if you're going to make a mistake or if you're going to get it wrong, people will come at you, right? Like users will say out loud what they think about the changes. And usually people don't like changes. So you need to be mindful when you do that. You need to deeply understand the domain that you're in. I think another perspective is that you have lots of people to learn from. You have like many juniors, but mid-level, seniors, principals, people that been in the industry for 20 years. Like the amount of knowledge that you gain, if you really open your eyes and ears and try to get this information, is amazing. And if you find the right mentors within those organizations, you learn a lot. And I think things in companies like corporates like Atlassian and such are much more organized and well thought. Those companies still might try to move fast, but it's you know, it's a beast. When you move fast, it's still slow compared to a startup. So I think that you can also, you know, I heard many people saying, oh, I've been in a corporate, I'm not making much impact, I can't really influence much. And with all honesty, I'm not sure I 100% agree with that. I think that if you're pushing the boundaries and if you're pushing hard, you can make a lot of impact in such a big organization. At least that was my experience. So for me, it was awesome. But in the end of the day, I also really like to build and I like challenges and I like to go I'm a risk taker. That's why I went to Australia. I landed there without being there even once. So, you know, all my stuff was on a ship on its way to Australia. I landed with my wife and my kid. And this is me meeting Australia after I signed the contract and resigned from my company. So I like to take risk and I like to build stuff. And I think that's the high pace in a startup, and to see people growing so rapidly next to you really ticks me. So that's why I'm back into startups, because I could go back into big companies, but I wanted to do it again.
Yeah, definitely. And you can see the excitement in your face and your voice when you speak about it. It's bursting through the screen. And yeah, it sounds like you had no way back once them bags were packed, but it's worked out well. And it's interesting to see how it's sort of come full circle. And just before we go into your company and sort of conversational AI in a bit more detail, one thing I wanted to touch on was you mentioned about the emergence of COVID, and you know, before that, home working was somewhat of a thing in the tech industry, but now we've seen a huge change in the comparisons of, you know, in office, remote. Of course, it was kind of forced in that essence, but for you, what's your sort of views in terms of working remote versus in office?
So I think it's really, really personal, right? Like back in my day, you didn't really have an option to work from home. There was no policy for home. You need like a special approval to do that. And back in the day, I didn't have kids. So for me to go to the office, yeah, that was easy. It wasn't a big deal, even if I needed to drive for like 40 minutes or so. And in Atlassian, everything flipped during COVID immediately. And like in Europe, in the US, and in Israel, everybody went and started to work from home. But Atlassian reacted very quickly and decided that they're going full remote forever in an hybrid approach. I think first for me, it was really hard because I'm a people's person, and I think from the nature of my work, I have lots of meetings and discussions and brainstorms. And then I find myself at my home just sitting on the chair all day long, and it's killing my back, but it's also not good for my health. And I like to move around. I think the thing that I miss the most is the brainstorms, is those conversations that you have in between when you're having coffee, for two reasons. One, it allowed me to, have random conversations about architecture, about problems in the product, design, whatever, and just picks people's brain and start drawing on the wall. And I would get so much from it. And it allowed me to talk directly to, engineers that might not even report to me and report to the team lead or whatever. They don't have much interaction with me, but we can just brainstorm and think about stuff. And then someone else is walking and they join the conversation. And I think innovation thrives in the office. And then, when we stopped doing it, so that was really hard for me to find ways to get this innovation coming up for my team. And the other thing is the connections, because when I meet you and you went to a party yesterday, or you had a nice drink, or you went to a good restaurant, or we're talking about the TV series that you watched, we are getting connected. and then I care a bit more about you. And the next time we're going to have a conversation and a topic that we can talk about. And I think this is missing in Zoom. It's harder because you don't have the setup. There's some companies trying to build these ideas that you have like 50 minutes for team activity once a week, but it's just hard to do it because it doesn't feel natural yet. I know that in this VR space, more companies like Facebook trying to get more people into that. So I think that's the thing that are missing. On the other side, I do think that working from home allows people to do more with their life. It gives them more flexibility. They have more quiet time. They can focus. So I do think that the hybrid approach is here to stay. I just think we need to find the right balance, and the balance changes by the DNA of the company and the status of the company, right? Like seed or round A, I guess that more people will be in the office. Round C, corporate, maybe it's going to be much more to the hybrid, or some teams going to be fully remote.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm with you on that. I think it totally depends on the person and the situation, but for me personally, it's hybrid is the way I need the mixture of the two. And as you can see, this whiteboard behind me, I promise it's usually full and bustling of ideas, and today I just had to take it down for the trade secrets, or maybe it was just my bad handwriting. But yeah, it's difficult to sometimes get them things over Zoom and or whatever it may be, but definitely is a big plus in terms of innovation. But really depends, like you said, on what stage you are within the business. If it's real critical stages or parts of the transformation, then of course it's gonna need different requirements. And I think most people are open to that. I mean, on our side as recruiters, we do speak to, on the rare occasions, we'll have graduates who just want to work completely from home, and we sometimes have to not argue with them, but debate. When you're starting off in a business, it's really important to make them connections, like you said, even if it's over something about a TV series or whatever it may be, to then help the team all around in the performance. But yeah, definitely depends on the type of businesses. And of course, we've touched on your business now, VP of Engineering at Hyro. You love taking risks, building things, and I'm sure that's very much at the heart of what you're still doing. But for those people who aren't too familiar with the business, if you could give us a sort of overview of who you are and what you do.
Yeah, sure. So Hyro is in the conversational AI space. Now, if we were talking a month ago, many people say, what you're talking about? And today I just say, ChatGPT and how you're making conversation with an assistant or with a bot. So this is more or less what we do. And now everybody understands what I'm talking about. And I'll touch about, LLMs, large language models, and ChatGPT probably during this conversation. So what we do, we have pretty sophisticated technology on the back end that allows us to easily deploy AI assistants. In a nutshell, we leave the burden of frontline staff, both on the healthcare domain and real estate. We also work in some other domains by automating repetitive tasks that don't really require human intervention. Examples can be reset your password. It can be scheduling a tour, book an appointment with a doctor, canceling your appointment, get some data that you need about your appointment, and things like that, and freeing those frontliners to actually work with complex situations when you need to find a special doctor or something urgent, and you really need a human being intervention there. And also for the end users, you don't want them to wait for 40 minutes on the line to do a very small and easy task that they can't really do. So we do it over voice, we do it over text, so it can be via SMS or chatbots that you can deploy, or web assistants you can deploy on your websites. And this is more or less what we do. And with our technology, the biggest thing that we do is that we don't base it on training machine learnings on your data. We actually have the capability to take your data, model it in our own way with a knowledge graph, and based on that we can query it, and without any training, we can just easily deploy those assistants with easy maintenance, and you can go live very, very quickly. and it's all based on your data with enrichment that we add on top of it, and things that we allow you to do to improve the conversation with sophisticated analytics and reports and such.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And we'll of course put the links for anyone who wants to see any more on the company website, and of course your pages to find out in a bit more detail. But yeah, you kind of hit the nail on the head there at the start in terms of it's the big buzz topic at the minute with the emergence of ChatGPT. I mean, before that, when I would try and explain to my friends what I do for a living and the type of people I recruit for, and one of the things, of course, conversation AI, they go, what are you talking about? And the main examples I had was, Siri or Alexa, but now I don't need them at all. That one phrase, ChatGPT, and everyone instantly recognizes. But with the emergence of it, I guess from a working at a conversational AI startup, how do you see this affecting you, or what does this sort of future hold now that's in play on such a big scale?
Yeah, so I think for us it's great news. Like, we knew it's coming. We're in this space for around 4 years, a bit more, and the approach that we took was based on linguistics. So we have people that knows NLP or NLU, natural language understanding, and we use some models to do things called embedding, to actually understand how the English language actually works, and verbs and nouns, and how they connect, to actually understand how to reply to a human being. And we also, think a lot about the conversation UX, and we have conversation designers, and to ensure that you understand that you're actually talking to an AI, an assistant, and not to a human being, but it can actually help you. And we knew that LLMs are getting better and better, but we knew that we don't want to train them, and we don't want to build it ourselves. We knew that one day it's just going to be a commodity, and the day is here, right? And OpenAI announced this big work, and we started to work with InstructGPT and OpenAI even a few months back, before the big announcement, and we made some big improvements by using it, because it was easy to connect it to our architecture in the way we build our technology and product. And I think what you can easily see is that Microsoft is not there alone, right? Microsoft invested in OpenAI, but Google just announced Bread, and they had the Lambda model, and Facebook has their own models. And I think what you see now is that it's here, and it's just going to get better. I think there is still big challenge with privacy and compliance. I think, I see my friends don't really think about it, but they upload their images and private sensitive data. I'm helping startups from time to time, and then I talked to one of the founders, and then he told me they tried to do something cool with a quick summary on the product, and they're actually sending all the sensitive data for their customers to OpenAI without really understanding that no one ensures that this is safe. So I think thinking about compliance, thinking about on-prem solutions, thinking about PII and GDPR and HIPAA compliance and things like that, that's going to be an interesting journey for companies to take. But I think the experience for all of us is going to be 10 times better. And you see it today. The other thing that most of those models are statistics. So, based on statistics, and the answers you're going to get not necessarily going to be deterministic. And for enterprise usage, that can be an issue. When you do a search in Google, that's fine. But now when I'm scheduling an appointment, I need to schedule the appointment. So you need to ensure the integrity of the service, and you need to make sure that we're actually getting the action that we wanted to get.
Yeah, perfect. So if anything, it's been a major plus for you. I wasn't sure if it would be, big competition or everything, but it's great to hear that it's driving brand awareness, if anything, and getting a lot of people talking about it, a lot of people excited about it. So we've of course touched on the emergence of some of the bigger names as well. Obviously, Microsoft investing in OpenAI, and Google also starting up their own sort of spin-off. But in terms of these big companies recently, not just with ChatGPT, but in terms of layoffs, it's been well documented. And when I speak to entry-level people starting out, they can be a bit apprehensive. Maybe they're not quite sure where to go. Always the the risk, if you like, was, oh, if I go to a small to medium company, there's no guarantee that it's going to stay afloat, or this could happen. There's a lot of lots of fluctuation, but we've actually seen on the other end that no one's really safe, and there can be a lot of risk with even joining these big enterprises, which were thought to be very safe. So from your perspective, how do you see, what advice would you give someone going into the industry now if they were, say, comparing themselves to joining someone like yourselves, or if they were looking at one of the bigger names? What sort of advice would you give them?
That's a great question. I think, from 2008, people didn't, it was a big boom in the tech industry, and salary just went up, more positions opened. In COVID, it went crazy. Like everybody hired. You just needed the pulse to get a job at some point. And it was pretty hectic, right? And nobody did it on purpose. And with COVID, everything went online. The companies saw the revenue going like this. They needed to react. They said, okay, this is the new world. Who knows when COVID is going to end? And they just kept hiring and hiring and hiring. And even before, the tech industry was in a pretty good shape globally. But it happened before, right? In 2000, 2008. And I got my first position in the student in 2009 after the big crash in the industry. And even for me, I needed to cut my salary almost by half to take my first position. And I think that people today, they got used to have like great salaries, and I like, people can come with demands. I only work from home, and I only this and only that. And I think people need to understand that in the end of the day, they need to provide value, and they're competing with others, and they need to think what I'm going to get from it. Like, if I'm going to a company, yes, salary is one thing, but you're just starting your career. There is a very long journey, and we have a luxury in the tech industry to get paid pretty well compared to to other positions that people have. And I think you need to carefully understand who's going to be my manager, how much I'm going to learn from them, who's going to be the chief architect that I'm going to teach me how to write code, what are the tech stack, and which capabilities I want to build. So it's going to be easy for me to find a job whenever I want, even during a crisis. So optimize for that. Optimize for your skills, optimize for your growth, optimize for the experience you want to get. So you want to feel a corporate, or you want to get to a small startup, understand the differences, but focus. If you try to take everything, then you're not bringing much into the game. And I think that people that do that, I think they just need persistence, but over time they will find the position, they will get better. And from then on, it just, sailing towards the goal that you want to achieve.
Yeah, definitely. And I've seen it on my side from obviously previously working in Scandinavia and starting off in being from the UK. But when I started on the US market, the difference in the salaries for coming out of graduates was quite considerable. But yes, like you said, sometimes people can focus too much on the numbers and not the actual route to where they want to get to in that journey. So you obviously touched on some great points for people to hone in on. And then looking back now, Daniel, we've of course been on a whirlwind from Israeli Air Force to Australia, now back to where you are today. If you could sort of take us on in terms of achievements, both professionally and non-professionally, what are you most proud of at this point?
Yeah, so I think Bizabo was one thing. Starting with 7 or 8 people in the office, and getting, when I left, were 130. I think Bizabo at some point went into 400 people and raised more than $100 million. And I'm still in touch with many of the people in Bizabo. I think that was a great success for me. And just feeling the growth and how I need to evolve and change all the time. And Atlassian, I never thought that I'm going to get into the position I got eventually. I grew there very, very, very quickly and rapidly. It felt like, an experience on steroids. And I thank Atlassian a lot. I think the company, the founders, Mike and Scott, are amazing. The values they have, how they believe in them, how they're building the whole company around the fact they've been in the company for 20 years and still best friends and co-CEOs. And above everything for me, it's seeing the people I work with grow. It's, I can do well in my job, but at the end of the day is what people feel when they work with me. And the fact that, I left and the people that are there got promoted. Some of them took my position. Some of them, grew to do things that they really wanted to do for a very long time. And I had a part in it to allow them to get there and to coach them and to mentor them and to fight for them if needed. That's what makes me happy the most. And I'm starting to see those fruits in Hyro as well, right? I have an amazing team and see how people are passionate about the space. And now we have a team that, going after LLMs in and out and learning everything in the industry and how much they invest. It's just amazing to see. So whenever I see that people are enjoying their work, I feel that I made a good accomplishment. More than anything, it's not about money or compensation. It's about actually, building an awesome product and love the people you work with and see them go.
Perfect. And if not to scaremonger here or anything like that, but say Conversational AI was shut down tomorrow, what would Daniel be doing if he wasn't in the technical world?
So in the technical world or not in the technical world?
Not in the technical world, yeah. If it's shut down, what would you be doing?
Yeah, so I always had the dream to be a school principal.
Right.
And if not, probably I would be a surgeon, like a brain surgeon or a heart surgeon, something with a lot of pressure.
Right.
My big brother is a doctor, but he told me, no, don't do that. Go to you need to study mathematics and computer science. And
Yeah.
I actually followed his advice. It went well, but maybe because of that, I'm not a surgeon.
Yeah, well, both high pressured one. I don't think I could take being a brain surgeon in case I left something where it shouldn't be or something along them lines. But yeah, you certainly have to be brave to be a school principal. But I can imagine that one as well. And finally, really enjoyed today's conversation and thank you so much for your time. But just for people listening who wanted to get in touch, of course, we'll put your posts and your links so they can do so, but just for people wondering in terms of what's next for you, what's the sort of next steps for Daniel Bentov and Hyro?
Yeah, I think we are here to stay and we're here to explode, and I think that we have an amazing opportunity to accelerate what we do and to actually just change the way people interact with call centers and website and help them to get what they need much faster. And if we manage to accomplish that, I think the end users and the businesses themselves going to be in a much better position and just provide a better experience for everybody. And instead of people wasting time waiting on the line, they can be with their families, they can do other stuff and enjoy life. So I hope we're going to be, up there at the top and getting our gig running, but most importantly, just enjoying the ride and having fun while doing it.
Yeah, definitely. And it's a very exciting time to be in this sector. That's in terms of all our customers, that's where the demand is the highest at the moment. So been a pleasure getting to know you over the last this year and the end of last year, and Hyro as a business, and excited to see what the next steps are and keeping track of your journey. But once again, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you very much, Sean. Thank you for having me.
No worries, Daniel.